I want to talk about something that's part of Eastern mythology in a way, but really essential to what we do here. It's called universal self. It's a very strange intellectual concept, and in many ways spiritual practice, the stuff you're doing sitting here, is in search of it. What is our spiritual or universal self? Well, it's sitting right here now. It's in this room. And it's emanating from every one of you. The question is it aware of itself in you? It's possible during the class that it sort of presented itself. It usually doesn't say, "I'm here." It just is a kind of recognition, a presence. It's sort of why you come here. It's this feeling of, It feels really good to be connected or to be aware of universal presence, the universal self. What gets in the way is the noise of the brain trying to make sense of it, trying to articulate it, trying to hold on to it, trying to think about how you can write a book about it. Universal self is simply what is. Let me try to explain it as easily as possible. And I know I've done this before, but it would be great if it made sense. Everything up to this moment, in terms of you and your story, is not it. It's all past tense, and you should let it all disappear. Everything proceeding from this moment into the future is not it. And you should lose complete interest in it for this moment. If you can let go of everything up to this moment, of your name, your story, your history, your problems, your fears, your concerns, just let it go. Let go of what might be in the future. Feel that the past is already 1 billion years away and the future is 1 billion years down the road. All that exists is right now. And your name is not part of it. Your story is not part of it. All that is right in this moment. And try to imagine this moment without your history, without your story. Try to imagine that nothing ever existed before this second, and nothing else matters. Just this. And then try to experience what this is. It has a body. Yep. Definitely has a head. Has a lot of feelings, but if you don't relate them to story, they're just feelings going on. Some of them if you are judgmental, will be better than other feelings. But mostly your judging of them is based on past experience. So if you just let them be feelings, there's a lot of feelings going on. And some of them are going to be good feelings, and some will be uncomfortable feelings. There is some kind of intellectualization going on. You can feel thoughts going on, some of them relating to the past and the future, but if you don't grab hold of them, they just pass through. The only thing that grabs hold of them is your sense of who you were and who you want to be. But if you're not involved in that, these things just come up and go. They can just go. So there you are, sitting here. Clearly there's a floor beneath you. There seems to be a roof above you. There appears to be sunlight, daylight, sky, other people. If you're not involved in your story, none of these people have names. They definitely have other bodies like yours. There's a kind of strange silence, occasionally punctuated by what you will call an airplane or a train or a car. But right now it's not there. There's just this. Sometimes in the middle of this universal self, you feel a longing to move into the next moment. Sometimes you feel a pull into something past tense. But if you just sit in it and don't give into that, you just sit. And this thing happens, a kind of presence, just pure presence. It has no name, it has no history, it has no future, it just is presence. Sometimes the release from all of your past suffering in that moment is so beautiful. This presence will have this feeling of being free and liberated and beautiful, and you will feel, there will be a sense of great bliss. But after a while, that falls away. Sometimes there are pains and there are disturbances that come into the system, and you look at them. If you don't project them into the future, they're not problematic. They're just there. You shift a little bit, you alter yourself. If a pain persists, and you can't get out of the way of it, you sit with it. Universal self seems to have periods of pain. And so you just go, okay. That pain seems to be, for reasons that are hard to understand, instructive. It teaches you about what your self is. And your self is composed of pleasures and pains that have nothing to do with you personally. They're just there. They're part of what makes this self up. It has all that stuff in it. If you're not projecting this or relating it to anything, it just is. If you watch a baby, which is very connected to universal self, when the pain comes up, it cries. When something funny happens, it laughs. A lot of the times it just sits there looking. But it's totally engaged in what is in this universal self. It doesn't yet know itself. It doesn't yet know its story. It hasn't built that yet. So the person who finds universal self is suddenly very much like a baby. What happens to a baby when it cries? What happens? Somebody comes to it. They come in, they hold it. What happens to a baby when nobody comes when you cry? Do you remember that? Do you remember what happens? Something comes to you. It may not be outside. It may not be apparent. Something comes to you when you are truly crying, when you are truly sad, when you are really hurting. Something comes to you from way inside. And it does the same thing. It does this. And inside and outside are no different. They're no different. Help arrives from the inside or the outside. It arrives. Something powerful loves you. Something loves you. Universal self is loved. In some ways, universal self is love. It loves itself. You are loved. Universal self will ultimately, from this biological perspective, disintegrate. It is not living in fear of that because it's not projecting that. It has a built-in system which fears pain and fears dissolution, but it doesn't spend a lot of time with that until the moment comes where that becomes real. At some point, you will cease to exist. And at that point, universal self will go through the universal drama of death. And at that point, which is wherever it may come, it will know what to do. You will cry, and somebody will come, your children, a nurse will hug you and hold you. Or you will cry, and something deep inside will rise up and take you. You do not need to spend your entire life fearing or preparing for that moment. Every moment arises with all the stuff it needs. Everything you need will be present, is always present. Universal self is what we are at this very moment, absent story, absent history, absent future. And then a deeper version of this incorporates your story. A deeper version of universal self is your personal story and your universal story, or your universal presence. And if you take it further, it's the story of everyone, not just you. But you can't arrive at that place of total embrace until you have let go of your separateness. Once you've let go of your journey, of your struggle, of your ambition, all of that stuff, once that falls away, you find who you truly are, and then that expands to include all there is. It's a process. And we're all in it. Every one of us. Most people are deeply asleep within this process. Most people are so caught up in the history and the future that they have no concept of this universal self. Teachers have come along since time immemorial to say, oh, wait a minute, you're not what you think you are. You are potentially free of you. You are potentially a liberated being. We've heard these stories from the beginning, and a few of us pay attention. Everyone in this room somehow is here because they've heard that story. They're looking for that. And then there are many millions of people who do not know that story and who live a life of this extraordinary illusion of being somehow your narrative. It seems to be impossible that we could not be our story, that we could not be everything that's led up to this moment and everything that will follow. It seems impossible. But again, if you can just imagine for this moment that all that stuff is gone, you're there. You're right there, right now. Truly, this is it. This is it. And every great teaching will tell you that. This is it. This is right now. And then if your story comes shooting in and going, but that thing happens, then you blow that out of the water. You won't feel it. And you'll go back to suffering, you'll go back to illusion and drama and all that stuff. The simple truth is, we're all the universal self. Every one of us. And every one of us is to one degree or another deluded by the drama and the story. And the significant fact is, we're supposed to be. Because this world that we're in wants to exist, it wants to manifest, it wants to be created, it wants the drama. You can ask why, and everybody in ancient time has said, why is this? And there's so many different answers. The one I've always liked is, well, it wants to know itself, or it wants to enjoy the play. It's a great play. It's how infinite time enjoys itself. You have a choice in the middle of all of this to go, it's a play. And then you look at it and play it differently. Or you don't do it and you suffer it as though you're on stage and it's really happening. You don't have to wake up anybody. Nobody has to know their universal self. It's not a requirement. If your life gets really, really, really hard and painful, it may help. That's often one of the keys that gets you into this seeking mode and often into the finding mode. It's just too painful. But some people don't. Some people take it to the extreme. They kill the self, literally. They do horrible things. They live terrible dramas. And that's what we see around us all the time. You turn on the nightly news, that's what you watch. This idea that you are this universal self is so beautiful and so worth knowing that there are lots of people out there who preach it. Lots of people. And once you've connected with this idea and you want it, and you really want it, it's available. It's not hard. But here's the problem, and it's old problem. The ego-minded self wants this awareness for itself. It wants to have peace and joy and bliss and awakening and have it for itself. It doesn't work that way. The thing that happens to anyone who awakens is the ego falls away, and the universal self is what remains. And the universal self no longer owns anything. It is an endless flux on one level and a constant state on another. It is a wave and a particle. And what we do as universal self is we awaken to what's in front of us, moment to moment to moment. We watch life arise. That's all I do every day. Life arises. I watch it and I watch it and I interact with it, not as Bruce interacting with stuff, but as the self interacting. A fascinating thing that I've understood is that becoming universal self in no way is a finished being. Universal self is still in play. There are still aspects of universal self that are working themselves out, that need to be explored. When I started working with people who had awakened, in the energy sense of meditating like this, one of the things that hit me that was so amazing was how incomplete so many of these awakened souls are. Their hearts are not open. Their heads are locked in place. Their gut is frozen. Different things, different situations. And I went, well, what's that about? How can you awaken in such incomplete form? But that's what happens. Awakening is to your own incompletion. And then you have work to do, and life will bring you that work. It will bring it to you every day. And if you are conscious, you will embrace it. One of the ways life brings it to you is it makes it uncomfortable. You will feel pain in life. If you are willing to go into your pain, lessons will reveal themselves so quickly. The power of awareness, of universal awareness, is that you stop resisting and rejecting and running away from what's in front of you. The stuff comes with infinite power, and it transforms you and transforms you and transforms you, and you get cleaner and brighter and stronger and more effective as a human being, and you have enormous capacity to do the one thing that everybody wants, which is you can begin to love people. Every person who you look at in the world is saying one thing to you, truly. They're saying, love me. That's all anybody's saying. And the universal self, which rises up in your crib, that rises up in your deathbed, that rises up any time during the day, loves you. And when you realize that this is you, and everyone out there is saying, love me, this universal self will take care of it. It truly loves you. It loves you in every form, in every aspect, in every part of your being. And if you can do that, the process of unfolding and awakening as an awakened being is that you become a greater and greater vehicle for this expression of compassion and love, until that's all you are. There's so much work to be done. There's clearing away. You know, one of the great things about Rudy, and I have come to this over time, if you can simply imagine that Rudy, in all of his teaching, was talking to awakened souls. That all of his work effort was not about coming to awakening, it was about what you do when you're awakened. How do you live once this extraordinary truth is available to you? The journey is not over ever. If it was over, why would this be? There is no over. We just are here. We are here to be part of this. The awakened soul is just aware of the journey. The unawakened soul is just a participant in it. But we're all in the exact same place. We're all going through the exact same thing. You're either doing it with realization or without realization. You're either doing it aware or unaware. Aware is better. So that's as simple as I can put it. You are the universal self. You are the universal soul, whether you know it or not. If you can just try this thing of letting go of the past and letting go of the future and say, help me to surrender, meaning letting go of all that, you will know what I'm talking about. And you do know what I'm talking about because you're there all the time. You truly are. And every time the mind tries to grab hold of it, you lose it. Because it can't be grabbed, it can't be held, it can just be known. So in every opportunity you have, just let go of all that stuff, past and future, and just be where you already are. Because that's where you are. And is it hard? No. Why? Because you don't have to go anywhere to do it. You don't have to do anything, you just have to be where you are right now. That's all you have to do. And you're doing it. Done. What's the problem? The problem is the second I say that, you're already fighting me in your head. The second you have presence, you lose it. You give it up. You move toward the pain, you move toward the drama, you move toward the drama, or the dream, the ambition, whatever it is, you move toward the other thing that will complete you. It will not complete you. Nothing will complete you. You're complete. There's no you to complete. There's just a story. Just a story. And it will end. Guaranteed. So, any questions? Tara.
Thank you. I really feel good. It was incredible to hear. I'm wondering about making decisions, and even if you're connected to the universal self, where you are, and you're in that moment. I actually feel kind of good at that. It's the other step of actually making plans that I find deep challenging. And I was going to ask you to talk about how to connect that with future. Please.
Well, part of your problem, part of your emotion in all of this, part of your suffering that goes along with making plans is your connection to past history, past choices, things that didn't work the way you wanted them to, and the idea of projecting all of that into some future as though you can actually know and predict the future and make it work. You can't. The only thing you can do is make the choice of the moment, really. And mostly the choice of the moment is, I would say yes to the moment. When you say no to the moment, you're resisting it. Saying yes to the moment sometimes is really painful and hard, but that's what this is about. Saying yes and seeing where it goes. There's a thing in us that knows. It just knows. We're looking for outcome. Everyone's looking for outcome. The outcome is, I want to be happy, I want to be pleasured, I want to be loved. I don't want to suffer, I don't want pain. And we're looking for that outcome, and that outcome is all future-based. And the future will always be what this moment is, which is some kind of mixture of pleasure and pain, all just sitting here in you, and you just sit there, and you sit very still with it, and you don't get caught. You don't get caught by it. It's just there. I call it the soup that we're in. It's flavored by pleasure and pain. It's never perfectly wonderful. It's never perfectly terrible. It's a little bitter. It's a little sweet. It's a little peppery. It's a little salty. It's got all these flavors, and it's just what we are. And you just live in that, and you don't judge it, and it's really relatively tasty. Oh, you wouldn't be here. In fact, you kind of love it. We really do love it. So if you can let go of thinking there's consequence that's going to make you happy, and realize that your happiness has nothing to do with the future, that your happiness has everything to do with this moment, which you never really leave, you will find that you are happy. Or if not happy, I call it okay. This incredible sense of being okay. And that this future thing that you're afraid isn't going to work out, isn't going to be what you want it to be, that causes suffering because you think all of this okayness isn't enough, and what you want is going to be some attainment in the future that will be consistently wonderful and perfect. It will never be that. Ever. It will always be okay. Even when you get there, unless you're in, in some horrible, painful state. And then, if you really sit with that state, this comfort will come. It will come. But it will always come from the present. It won't come from something down the road. As long as you believe that where you're headed to is going to be better than this, you're going to be deluded. Always. It will never be better than this. You may have a better house, but then you'll have people you don't like visiting you all the time. It's always going to be something. It will never be perfect. It can't be. It's not built that way. You can't arrive at a place where everything is finally right. And if you do, it'll be that for about an hour. And then, not right anymore. Then what do? You finally built a perfect life, and then it falls apart. It's horrible. It happens all the time to people. Because nothing is permanent. There is no permanent. So I would just say, put your attention here and not on that. I know when you look at your own life and you look at the stuff that didn't work and the stuff you want to have happen and the fear that comes along with that, it's huge. It's huge. It's all delusion. But it doesn't help for me to say that because it's your life. And every life is many ways full of delusion. The reality is this moment, Super Bowl Sunday, whatever that is. That's the reality. Embrace it. Okay?
I feel like the world would be a better place if everyone was searching for the universal self, right? And that's why we come here on Sundays, and we're all in the vicinity of each other's presence, and it's wonderful. It's when I leave this house that the real world happens, and it's like, wow, the person next to me honking at me right now because I'm in traffic is not doing the same thing. And then, you go to work and you deal with someone who just has no idea, not one iota of what this is about. And I feel like that's kind of what our story is, it becomes, because we're dealing with maybe other individuals who have no idea what this is.
Right. But that was you at one point. That was you before you sat down to meditate. You were one of those people.
Right.
You were honking your horn, you were creating tension for other people, and now you're not that person. Now you're this sweet, enlightened, wonderful being out in the world, okay? And that's what you've become or can become. So what happens, instead of getting angry at the honked horn or getting annoyed by all these other people, you experience, in some perfect way, compassion for them. You get it. You start to feel how many lifetimes or years or whatever hours they've got to work through to get where you are. It's a big journey. And you really feel compassion. And you really go, oh my God, how's this world ever going to work all this through? Because there's not that many people walking around with their hearts open loving everybody. But you can be one of them. And that's what you choose. That becomes your journey. That's how the world changes. It's the only way it changes. By people walking around becoming that. It's really hard. This universal self that we're in is a really powerful, dynamic thing. It has hurricanes in it. It has tornadoes. It also has perfect sunny days like today. It has all that stuff going on. It has explosions. It has lovemaking at the most beautiful level imaginable. It has all of that. And we come in for the part we like. Then we have to buy into the rest of it. It's yin-yang. It all works together. You begin to sense that. You begin to sense, I am that. I am all of that. Look what I am. And you begin to be unbelievably impressed by, awed by your own true nature, which is beautiful and terrifying all at the same time. And these are the lessons. They're the lessons that come. And you'll screw it up every time you leave here, because we all do. But there comes a point when universal self is in play, and do you think universal self takes that away? No. When Christ walked into the temple, he didn't say, you guys really shouldn't have all this gold selling going on in the temple. He didn't do that. He went, threw that stuff all over the place. He was enraged by what people were doing. Was that personal ego mind or universal self? I'm going to answer universal self. I may be wrong. But that's how it works. You become yourself. I watched Rudy truly become himself. He became so real, so full, so completely Rudy, and you'll become so completely Michael. We each become completely what we are, but it's filled with this vastness of being. This vastness, instead of this little bitty, puny little, jealous, envious, tired, angry person that most people are. That falls away. It really falls away. And this other great thing occurs. It doesn't occur, it's always there.
For about 15 years, I've been kind of amazed by the sort of brilliant paradox that exists in Eastern thought. For instance, the idea of the universal self and dropping the drama. On the other side of this is what you also say is that we can't help but get caught in the drama. And that it's even significant for us to get closer to the universal self, that we pass through it. The Buddha said, the end of suffering. Enlightenment is the end of suffering. Drop desire. What's always, I think, eluded me, as much as it's amazed me, is how to collapse those paradoxes and attain some sort of unity in these sort of irreconcilable ideas of live in the universal self, live in the drama. Go through the drama, drop the drama.
It just happens. It just happens. Nothing changes and everything changes, is what they say. And suffering goes because what leaves you is the projection of the momentary pain into future pain. A baby doesn't suffer, they just cry. And then it's over and they're laughing. A second later, they're laughing. They're not suffering. They're in pain, and then the pain goes away. If it's there all the time, then what happens? Well, like I described earlier, love comes to them from somewhere. There is a comforting force in the universe. I know there is. I've experienced it. We've all, I think, experienced it. And if you're a baby whose parents let him cry long enough, you have to experience it. Parents who don't let you cry really are not doing you a favor, because you've got to find that place in yourself. But the paradox of all of this is mind paradox. It's not a paradox when you find the loss of past and future. When you find presence, everything is there. It's all there. It arises, it falls away, it arises, it falls away. Stuff goes on. And it's a little bit like, they describe it like this many times in Eastern theology, a clear sky, thunderstorms come in, beautiful storms, little wispy clouds, sunlight, darkness, stars. It's just the sky. And what you start to discover is you are just the sky. And this stuff comes in and it goes out. It comes in and it goes out. The sky sometimes looks like a party you don't want to go to. It looks like a bad television show. It looks like all of these strange things. It looks like the most beautiful person you've ever seen in your life that you want to have more than anything, and they disappear like a cloud. Or they become real for you and then you don't like them so much. Whatever it is, stuff arises, you may get it for a long time, for a short time, it's just happening. And once you really understand that, you become free of that. I could not be talking to you like this if I was Bruce. That's all I can tell you. Bruce has no understanding of anything that's being said here. It's just happening. I'm watching it happening. I am it happening. All going on at the same time. Whatever is coming through me would come through you directly the minute you let go of past and future. Every one of you is brilliant beyond measure. Truly, every one of you has this exact same truth and knowledge. It's not owned by me or anyone who claims to be awakened and enlightened. It's owned by everybody. But you have to be able to, this idea of letting go of yourself, the problem with that idea of letting go of yourself is that you think you can do it. You can't let go of yourself. Yourself lets go of you. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, you're free. But it only happens, I think, not 100% sure, when you have announced to yourself year after year after year, I want this. I am willing to be destroyed to have that. I am willing to let go of everything to have that arrive. when you have really announced that enough, and it knows you. Yourself knows you. And when it knows it's true, it will just go, and it will blow you away. And what will be left is everything you've ever been, the thing you've always been, and you will feel so relieved of the name personality thing falling away, because it's never been your friend, really. You know, letting go of that emotional drama of your life is such a relief. The problem is, if you're letting go of your ambition and you're gonna win the Oscar, you know, whatever the thing that you're waiting to become, you know, that's hard to let go of, you know, and so they won't do it for you at that point, because what you really want is not to awaken. You really want to have that knowledge so you can get the Oscar, which is still going to be taken away somewhere. But as Rudy said, you can't let go of what you haven't had. So get out there and get it. Get all that stuff, lay it out, be done with it. So when the time comes, they can really go, here, we're freeing you of that, and you won't feel the loss of it. You know? Or if they do it the way they do sometimes, they take it away from people beforehand, they being the self. Universal self takes your life away, and you go, and you're in a state of terror for a long time, because everything you thought you were is suddenly gone. And so then you've got to take all these years to make peace with what just was taken away from you. I mean, there's so many variables in all of this, but the reality is, ultimately, let go, surrender, let it be. And if you can communicate to yourself that you want to serve yourself in every possible way, even in your art form, that's all you want. It's not to serve you, it's to serve it. And if it finally believes you, and it will know, believe me, it's smarter than we are, it'll go, okay, here you go. Anybody else?
So does that serving yourself, is that intertwined with all of a sense of fate or purpose? Is it?
Yeah, no, it's why we're here. It's why we're here. You know, some of us know why we're here, some of us don't. You know, but if you start to feel that you've come here to serve a mission, you know, you may be serving a mission, or you may be serving you thinking you're serving a mission. That gets very complicated. You know, if you're looking for the reward of it, the universe knows that. You know, it's not dumb. You know, it sees everything. So it'll do the number. First of all, let me just put it really clearly. It loves you. Yourself loves you. And it loves your journey, even if it's completely messed up. It loves you. It doesn't want you to suffer. It really doesn't want you to suffer. On the other hand, it knows this is how the journey works. And if you really want to taste life, you're going to probably suffer. Buddha said life is suffering. And you're going to mess up in so many ways. And you're going to serve ego, which is the wrong thing to serve. You're going to do all of this stuff. But at some point, the realization of who you truly were will erase all of that. And you'll just cry for a long time. Because it's so beautiful. And then you'll find, if you're still alive, you'll settle into, oh, I'm still here and none of those goals are meaningful. What do I do? And the thing that kind of comes to you is, I will love my life and everything that arises in it. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what you do. And you either talk about it, or you engage it, or you just are it. Some people, Eckhart Tolle goes out there and manifests it. I've started meeting all these people who don't talk about it, who don't have the equipment to talk about it. They just are it. They just touch you in a certain way. They look at you in a certain way. You don't even know they've done it. And it's enough. You do what you're supposed to do. You have a mission. I mean, you know you're on a mission, so take the mission. Will that mission satisfy? I've been around the block enough times to know that probably not. You know, it will satisfy in some way. I'll tell you what's more satisfying than anything. It's the doing and the creating, not the fallout from that doing and creating. Whatever that may be, whether it extols you or whether it destroys you. You know, the real power is the creating itself, because then you're one with creation. As you create, you are making something out of nothing. You're touching what God touches every second. It's a beautiful thing.
I was lying in bed the other day after I woke up, waiting for the sun to come up so I could go down and feed the horses. I was feeling really good. I dropped tension and just kind of floated there. And all at once, I felt this thing like somebody had poured liquid hydrogen down my spine. Just absolute existential terror. And I got that that's something that's really deep in me. And it's something that stops me from doing all the stuff that I say that I want to do. And even though I've been doing this work for decades now, it still is like an anchor I'm driving around.
Terrell, you know, I mean, what's seeming to be in some ways a distinguishing element for me in my awakening process is that after my awakening, I experienced exactly what you're talking about, this existential terror. And you know, that's not supposed to happen after you awaken. You're supposed to be free of all of that. And the minute I started talking about it in that community of awakened souls, they were going, don't talk about that. That's not, you can't be awakened if you're feeling that. It's wrong. That is one half of the equation. Yin yang are two powerful polarities. They're not little dainty things. They're big. Having that existential terror is something you have to look at. You have to engage it. My experience of that was, and I've talked about this on tape here, I began to sing to it. I took it on. I just started going, hello darkness, my old friend, I'm here to talk to you again. And I started to dialogue with this unbelievable, terrifying force. And you know, you felt it. It's not a gentle thing. It is the thing. It's the destroyer. It's Shiva the destroyer. It's there to destroy all of your ego-mindedness, actually. And the ego is terrified of this thing. So I sang to it. I acknowledged it. I looked it in the eyes, because I've always run the other way. And it looked back at me and it went, it had not been acknowledged that way by me. And it was really interested. And it went, And it got very quiet. And I realized, this is me. It's part of my universal self. It's also part of, in some ways, Bruce's self, and it's part of all of ourselves. And people say, well, I've never had that. I've never felt that. I always tell them, hold your nose, hold your breath for 5 minutes. You will meet it directly. You will meet it. It's a powerful thing. It's horrifying. You have to find a way to look at it. And in my case, I invited it into my life. I invited it to be part of my daily life. That is an amazingly strange experience. But it comes in and it breaks things down. And it really takes stuff away from you in big measure. You will be shocked at its power, but you will see it's doing you a favor. It's working for you, not against you. It's part of you. You have to have the courage to do it. If you want a true spiritual life, you have to go there. And it is an anchor in your life, and I feel it every time I sit with you. And I feel that you've never looked at it, and I'm so grateful to hear that you have done it. Because you can't have this journey when that thing is pulling you away, pulling you down. Most people are on a spiritual journey because they're so afraid of that space. They want to escape it into light. You cannot go to light if you don't know that thing. Light by itself is not true. It's not real. Living in the light is living in the denial of the dark. That's not what it is. This is about being one with the light and the dark, with the yin and the yang, with the totality and the universality of your being. It's there. It's real. It's part of us. You can't deny that thing. You have to find a way to say yes to it. Scary, but that's why you're here. You're not going to meditate yourself out of truth, out of the fear of death. You will find a new relationship to death, but its fear will always be biological, always. It won't be existential, it'll just be biological. Nobody wants to be hung up on a cross. Nobody. Anyone else? Okay, thank you guys.